So you did it. You successfully stepped over your husband's twitching body, altered a few imperial records, and put your 16-year-old son Nero on the throne of the Western world. You are Agrippina the Younger, and for the first few months of 54 AD, you are feeling like a formatting genius. Nero is young, he's insecure, and more importantly, he has absolutely no idea how to run an empire, which is fine, because you do. For the first few months, the partnership is beautiful. Nero handles the ceremonial stuff, the parades, the festivals, looking pretty in a toga, while you, on the other hand, are busy handling the actual business of ruling. You micromanage the Senate, you dictate state policy, and you receive foreign ambassadors. In fact, you are so confident in your control that you have a new batch of Roman coins minted. And right there, stamped in solid gold, is your face sitting side by the emperor's. In the world of ancient Rome, this is the ultimate power move. It is the historical equivalent of changing your teenager's bank account status to a joint checking layout where you hold the pen. But here's the problem with teenagers. Eventually, they stop listening to their mothers, especially when their friends start pointing out that they have unlimited military power. Nero's tutors, a philosopher named Seneca and a military prefect named Verus, start whispering in his ear. They tell him he's a man. They tell him he's a god. And most importantly, they tell him it's incredibly embarrassing that his mother is still checking his homework and running the civilized world. But the major rift starts over something classic. A girl. Nero falls hard for a freed woman named Acte, completely ignoring the strategic royal marriage you set up for him. And when you find out, you do what any normal controlling mother would do. You scream at him, humiliate him in front of his friends, and threaten to replace him. This turns out to be a huge tactical error on your part. See, you assume Nero is still the compliant boy you raised, so you look him dead in the eye and threaten him. You remind him that Claudius has a biological son, 14-year-old Britannicus. You tell Nero that if he doesn't start behaving, you will march right down to the Praetorian Guard, tell him the truth about Claudius's sudden mushroom allergy, and bag Britannicus as the rightful emperor. You think you're playing chess and setting boundaries. Nero looks at you, nods, and decides two can play that game. A few days later, at a massive royal banquet, young Britannicus is handed a cup of hot wine. It's too hot, so a servant pours a splash of cold water into it to cool it down. Britannicus takes a sip, immediately gasps, and collapses on the floor, convulsing violently. The entire banquet hall goes silent. People are frozen. Everyone looks at Nero. Nero doesn't even stop chewing. He casually looks down at his dying stepbrother, shrugs, and tells the guests, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's had epilepsy since he was a kid. He'll be fine in a minute." Britannicus was not fine. Within seconds, his body is carried out of the room. Nero had hidden a powerful, fast acting neurotoxin in the cold water splash, completely bypassing the royal food tasters who had checked the hot wine. Across the table, your face freezes. You look at your teenage son, and for the first time in your life, you feel a cold wave of pure terror. You don't need a medical degree to know what just happened. You recognize the methodology. You recognize the absolute coldness of the execution. You realize the monster you spent your entire life breeding has just hunted for the first time. And he did it just to show you he's been paying attention to your lessons. You are next on the menu. But here's the thing, you didn't just survive the reigns of Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius by being careless. If Nero wanted to play the poisoning game, he was playing against a Grand Master who practically wrote the modern handbook. The moment you left that dining room, you went into full survival mode. Every single morning, you begin with a very specific, very bitter cocktail. Mithridatium, an antidote made of a massive cocktail of ingredients designed to build up a literal immunity to murder by chemistry. And oh boy, did Nero try to test that immunity. By 59 AD, the palace is not big enough for the both of you. Nero wants you gone permanently. But here's the hitch. You're still the daughter of the legendary Germanicus. The Roman public loves you, and the military respects your bloodline. If Nero just sends a guy with a sword to your bedroom, the city will riot. It has to look like an accident. Which brings us to attempt number one. Nero slips a lethal dose of poison into your favorite drink at a private gathering. He waits for the gasp. He waits for the collapse. But you casually finish your glass, wipe your mouth, smile at your son, and ask him how his day was. Nero is baffled. Now let's move on to attempt number two. Nero figures the first batch was just weak. He goes to Locusta, the palace's resident chemical expert, and demands something exotic, fast acting, and completely unstoppable. It goes into the food, you eat it, and you don't even get a stomach ache. Your bloodstream is basically a fortress. At this point, Nero is starting to sweat. Finally, we have attempt number three. Nero is growing completely paranoid. The palace tension is high enough to cut with a dagger. He tries one final desperate chemical cocktail, and you survive again. Imagine being the ruler of the known world, completely annoyed that your mother is too stubborn to die. Nero finally realizes that standard assassination methods are completely useless against a woman who is literally immune to science. If he wanted you gone, he had to get creative. No more wine, no more mushrooms. He needed a grand illusion, something theatrical, something mechanical. Which is exactly why he invites you out to a beautiful resort for a fake peace offering. And he introduces you to a brand new custom built boat. If this sounds fishier than the ocean Agrippina is about to fall into, it's because it is. Nero brought in his top naval engineers and asked them to design the most overly complicated, cartoonish assassination plot in human history. They built a custom luxury pleasure yacht. On the outside, it looks like a gorgeous imperial vessel. On the inside, it's a death trap. The ceiling of the main cabin is loaded with hundreds of pounds of lead weight held by a single collapsible pin. The hull is designed with a secret mechanical release that will literally split the boat in half on command. It's a literal Looney Tunes gadget built in ancient Rome. Nero invites you down to the resort town of Baiae for a festival. He hugs you, he cries, he tells you he wants to put the past behind them, and he wines and dines you until late into the night. Then he escorts you to his beautiful new boat to take you home across the bay. You board the ship, lean back into your luxury cushions, and close your eyes. In the middle of the night, out on the calm, open water, a crew member pulls the lever. Crunch. The heavy lead ceiling collapses instantly. It completely crushes your chief advisor who is standing nearby. But luck, or structural incompetence, saves your life. The canopy of your bed happens to be built out of a heavy solid timber, and it accidentally wedges itself against the falling ceiling, creating a tiny safe pocket. Outside the cabin, the crew is panicking because the boat isn't splitting apart fast enough. In the absolute chaos and darkness, your handmaid, Creperia, tries to save herself by screaming into the dark, "I am Agrippina! Save the Emperor's mother!" The crew immediately runs over to her and clubs her to death with oars. Seeing this, you do what you do best. You adapt. You stay completely silent, keeping your head down, despite a severe shoulder injury from the initial collapse. You slip silently under the side of the ship and swim out into the pitch black ocean. You swim for hours until a local fishing boat picks you up and carries you safely back to the shore. You just survived a mechanical assassination attempt through pure spite. You made it. You're exhausted. You collapse onto the bed inside your seaside villa, nursing your wounds, and realize the game is completely over. You thought everything was smooth sailing up until this boat incident, all pun intended. But there are no more moves on the board. You send a messenger to Nero, trying to play dumb, telling him that by the grace of the gods, you survived a terrible boating accident and that he shouldn't worry about coming to visit. When Nero gets the message, he absolutely loses his mind. His mother is unkillable. She survived an execution squad as a teenager, she survived exile, she survived poison, and she just swam away from a shipwreck. Panicked, Nero throws away all subtlety. abandons the engineer designs, and send three armed executioners straight to your villa. The doors are kicked open. Three men draw their swords and steps into your dimly lit bedroom. You don't scream. You don't cry. You don't even beg for mercy. You've known since you were a child exactly how this palace operates. You stand up, look the lead assassin dead in his eyes, rip open your tunic, and expose your torso. And then you deliver the most chillingly cinematic final line in ancient history. Strike here. Smite the womb that bore such a monster. The swords come down, and this is your ending. Agrippina the Younger played the absolute highest stakes game of political chess in human history. She survived tyrants, outmaneuvered the Senate, and poisoned an empire to secure the crown for her family. Her tragedy wasn't that she failed to control the monster, it's that she succeeded in creating him. But don't feel too bad for her, and definitely don't worry about Nero, because history has a very funny way of balancing the books. Free from his mother's restraint, Nero's reign would spiral into absolute madness, ending in a chaotic Senate revolt and his own messy suicide just 9 years later, permanently ending the Julio Claudian bloodline. Turns out, once you teach a monster how to hunt, you can't really complain when it runs out of food. Thanks for watching Killer Royalty. If you want to see which royal family we dismantle next Tuesday, make sure to hit subscribe. See you in the dark.